Welcome to Explore, Explain, Highlights. In this highlights package, we'll be looking at Season 1, Episode 7, with our guest, Jan Willem Tulp, discussing the project Visualisation for the Dutch Railway Authority.
The main idea for this project was that they were going to publish an annual report, and in general people think it's kind of boring, so they wanted to have something that's exciting to look at and hopefully draw more people to this annual report. And so they just gave me some we had some discussions about data, and eventually we settled on an average working day in the Netherlands, train travel of people in the Netherlands on an average working day, and that was the data. And so what I did was I turned that into some kind of interactive animated visualization where you can get some sense of where people are going or where the trains are running. It was designed for desktop first. I must say that if I look at most of my projects, I think that's the approach I take most of the time. So, and the reason for that is probably because I would like to get a sense of the potential of a data set and what is possible, so that I know where I can reduce things for smaller screens or make decisions. And if I would start the other way around, I don't do it that way most of the time, but for me this is an approach that works really well, because then I have a full sense of, okay, this is something that I can scale geometrically, or I have to reduce the amount of information. And so for me, I think for me it's easier to go back from big to small than the other way around.
From the perspective of constraints that you might have faced, did you have to work to any style guidelines and restrictions on colour usage, typeface choice?
To some extent, yes, because the Dutch Railways has a very strong brand, and also this agency that was developing the annual report website, they also had to comply with the style guide. But as it is in general with visualization, style guides are generally not designed specifically for visualization. So what and with visualization you try to communicate information, and that can conflict sometimes. So if you create a corporate identity or a style guide that has some nice colors, but if you want to communicate and it needs more colors, yeah, what are you going to do? So in cases like this, I try to stick to the style guide as much as possible and also be inspired by it, so that I can create small variations of it that it still fits in. But it's I'm not sure if it's 100% fit of the of the style guide, but yeah, as much as possible. Well, let me put it this way. That's one thing that I kind of like about doing these kind of creative visualizations, is that you one part of the process is playing around with the data and experimenting and trying things out. And so part of this was just stumbling upon this result, actually, because I started with this 3D lattice, but the full 3D representation without the map. That was what I started with, just to see what would it look like if I would show this. But then came the challenge of how would I show the map, and how would I transition between the map and the 3D view, because that was kind of a challenge. And what's also interesting is that I think, most of my visualizations are two-dimensional visualizations, and I use libraries such as D3 and working with a library, in this case as 3JS, and working in 3D, you technically you also have to make some different choices, so designing this is also a bit different. So, because in this case I was working with a 3D object and I wanted to show only part of it. And one of the things in 3D is that creating and destructing a 3D geometry is very expensive. It costs a lot of performance and calculation. So what you want to do is have create a 3D object once and then hide and show parts of it.
Right.
That's one thing. So, but then was the idea, okay, if that's the idea, how do I add this map to this? And so I came up with this idea that you can clip half of it, and that's basically what's happening. And so but the thing is that when you have this clipping plane, it basically cuts this 3D torus or circle, clips it in half. But this clipping plane extends infinitely. So you cannot say, I only want to clip the top of it, but it also clips the bottom of it. And so that's one of the things that influenced my design, because when you see the map, you don't see the bottom of it. It's below the screen, but if I would zoom out, you would see that the bottom would also be cut off. So that's one of the things. And then also the fact that you see trains moving, I was actually thinking about, I need to find the intersection between the map and all these lines. And then it turned out that if I position this clipping plane just a little bit before the map, then you actually have the small extensions of these lines between the map and the clipping plane. And these are actually the things that you see moving. So it kind of always have this vertical thing, because that's just the shape of the Netherlands. So that's one thing you have to deal with. But in 3D, you also work with a camera, and you can influence the aspect ratio and of a camera. So one of the things that I did experiment with was the amount of perspective for the camera if you move. So I think I exaggerated a little bit, so that if you rotate the map a little bit, then what's in front becomes disproportionately a little bit bigger, and etc. So that in that sense, I try to make a little bit more use of the available space, because if you only rotate it and not size it at all, then it stays kind of in the middle. So that's one of the things that I've been doing. But other than that, it's really it was really just playing around what looks nice a lot. And with regards to mobile, I didn't make too many concessions. Actually, one of them, I think, single things that I've changed is the number of stations that you can select, and it's only a few have been removed, because otherwise they would be too close to each other. So that's basically the biggest difference, and other than that, it just scales, and that's also really nice, I think.
Thank you for joining us for this Explore Explain highlights episode. As always, the full episode is available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. We hope to see you again soon on another episode of Explore Explain.